what we are going to do is we are going to address, as a panel, some of the basic objections that you're going to hear from your legislators. After we address these 6 objections, we're going to open it up to all of you, and you can come up to this mic here to the left, or this mic here on the right, ask any question, and we will give you our best answer. So with that, let's begin. First objection, this is really the first one that was really hammered hard here in Oklahoma, the objection that they raised, and that is that we can't ignore Roe. The Supreme Court has said from on high, and we have to wait for them to overturn their opinion before we can do anything about abortion. So if the legislator says that, how do we respond?
So a couple things. So one, they have a duty to ignore Roe. That's a better way of thinking it. So one, Gonzalez versus Reich was a Supreme Court opinion in 2010 that basically said the states cannot distribute any form of marijuana. States across the union are doing it anyway with zero repercussions, right? So that's one good example. But another good one is, keep in mind the Supreme Court ruled that black people were private property and had no rights at one point. So I would ask, and I've done this with my colleagues in the Senate, if you were a state senator at the time, would you have just said, well, can't you free the slaves? The Supreme Court said we can't. That really makes them bristle up, right? But there's several avenues to just kind of expose the Supreme Court's been wrong before, it's been righted, it's just a separate equal branch of government. It is not the, basically whatever they say goes.
So in the context of talking to a legislator as well, to put it in the form of a question can be helpful. And I would just ask them whether they're being consistent on this. So if, say, the Supreme Court tomorrow said that none of your family members and you had a right to live and it was legal for anyone to kill you, would your submission to Roe or to whatever that decision would be ultimate in that case? Would you continue to uphold the decisions of the Supreme Court and say that they ultimately need to be obeyed? Or would you write a bill saying that they need to be defied immediately? If it's you and your family, you're going to act a lot differently than if it's somebody else's family, somebody else's children. And that's just exposing your ageism in this. You're treating your preborn neighbors as other than, instead of image bearers of God who deserve equal protection.
So definitely bring up the Gonzalez Reich, the examples. Also, when they say it, if you can do this for me, say yes. If they say, what, you think I can ignore the Supreme Court? You think I can defy the Supreme Court? You want me to ignore Roe? Say, yes, that is what I'm asking you to do. Would you do it for pot? Would you do it if it was your family? Would you have done it if it was, back when Wisconsin was saying, yes, we're not allowed to help runaway slaves. We heard you, Supreme Court. We're going to do it anyway, which led to the birth of the Republican Party. They are saying these things, all of these objections, they are putting them forward primarily to get you to just kind of go, oh, shucks. Well, I guess we better just compromise with abortion. But you have to, whether you're using any of these specific examples, these are all really, nailing it. You have to just tell them, if there was ever a time to defy the Supreme Court, wouldn't it be to protect preborn children in the womb? Why did you run for office if you're not willing to do that? Don't be mean, don't be rude or snarky or a jerk, but you basically say yes, why won't you?
A way that I like putting this is you've got kind of three authorities that we can look to here. We can look to God's Word, we can look to the U.S. Constitution, and we can look to Roe versus Wade. And so you've got God's Word commands justice, the establishment of justice, the eradication of injustice, the prohibitions on partiality, the prohibitions on murder. We have clear biblical justification for what we are saying. We have a clear constitutional justification for what we're saying, right? In the 14th Amendment, no state shall deny to any person the equal protection of the laws. And then in the 10th Amendment, we have our rights to uphold the Constitution in defiance of the federal government if they are going beyond their bounds. And so we have God's Word on our side, we have the Constitution on our side, and what we don't have on our side is Roe versus Wade. And so you set this up, you've got God's Word over here, you've got the Constitution over here, you've got Roe versus Wade over here saying allow murder. Which side are you going to be on? because you can't be somewhere in the middle. You're either choosing to obey God and uphold the Constitution, or you are choosing to obey a genocidal opinion of the Supreme Court. Just kind of set that dichotomy up as a helpful way that I like to do it. So let's move on to question 2. This is often how they put it. They say we should never criminalize the mother. How do we respond to that? And this is an objection in Oklahoma, but especially for you Texas folks, this is the one they have really, really grabbed a hold of in Texas. But it's applicable everywhere as well.
So my answer to that one is when you read an abolition bill, it doesn't actually specifically state we're charging mothers with murder. The text of the bill doesn't say that. The text of the bill is applying all homicide statutes equally. That's what it's doing. It's being equal and consistent with homicide statutes. So whatever role the woman played, she should be held accountable for it. So a good example that I give, which some legislators want to hear it, some of them don't, if you have an adolescent female who's in an abusive relationship, she gets pregnant and her abusive boyfriend forces her to have an abortion with some illegal doctor, is a prosecutor going to come down on that adolescent female? Probably not. Probably not. Is he going to come down on the boyfriend and the doctor? Yes, as he should. But it goes back to just being consistent and not hypocritical when it comes to applying homicide statutes.
The other thing is, a lot of times, I think that's the main point. If they're bringing up criminalization and saying it's really harsh and you're trying to punish women, say, no. Like, this isn't a trick. We want to put it positively, but no, I just want the laws against murder to be applied equally to all people. Because I think some of them, even with just that, they're like, oh, why don't I, So that'll be very helpful. So I think that's the main thing you have to say, the equal protection thing. But if you get tempted into kind of saying, well, yes, it should be criminalized. Why are we ashamed of this? That's fine to be unashamed of criminalizing murder and prosecuting murderers. Remind them that we're not, because connected with this is this sort of idea of these ladies don't know what they're doing, we'll pass this law, and then all of a sudden 5,000 mothers are going to be getting the death penalty for abortion. That's fictional. Remind them that what we're doing is we're passing a law at the legislature that says you're not allowed to murder babies anymore. If you do that, you will be prosecuted for homicide. In the event of the passage of that law, there are no more freestanding abortion mills. There's no more access to abortion. Anyone going and getting an abortion in that eventuality would be seeking it out with malice forethought to find an illegal abortion to murder their child. That's what it would be. It's not we pass a law criminalizing abortion and the next day the 5 abortion clinics are just open and still doing it and all of a sudden we have to do capital punishment on all these mothers. No. And so and the connected part of that is that when they say these women don't know what they're doing, say, oh, well, maybe if you passed a law telling them not to do it, they would know it's murder, right? Just cut that out, because that's how people learn what is good and bad, because the law is a tutor.
And I would just press on their consistency as well here. They don't hold this view consistently. They believe that a mother or a father killing their child normally would go to jail, would be criminalized. There would be no question about that. And everyone would understand completely why, because parents are the ones most responsible for taking care of their children, and it is a truly heinous thing that some parents would kill their children. So they're not being consistent. They're only saying that the preborn don't deserve that same equal protection, because normally they believe that a born child does deserve that protection, and a mother or a father should go to jail for that.
So I hit Scott Klusendorf pretty good a couple times yesterday, but I'm going to cite a positive thing of Scott Klusendorf here. He has a thing called trot out the toddler. It's a thing he uses against pro-aborts. Take any argument that they apply in support of abortion and try to apply it on a child outside the womb. So is it okay to kill a child outside the womb if they are conceived in rape, right, or something like that? And what you can do in this case is just trot out the toddler, right? If if this legislator is saying, no, we can never punish a mother or a father for murdering their child, well, can we punish a mother or father for murdering their 1-year-old, their 2-year-old, right? It's the same deal here. And so charting out the toddler is a helpful thing. For anyone who's either here or watching online, this is one of the tougher points for a lot of people who are newer to abolitionism or unfamiliar with abolitionism. And so while we don't have time to go super deep into it tonight, I will refer you to our website. If you go to freethestates.org, you go to the menu, What We Believe, and then Criminalization. There's a lot of good info there. And then also on YouTube, if you look up Abortion and Equal Justice by Abolish Abortion Texas, Bradley Pierce, an attorney, has a really good video on this subject as well. So if you have any further questions or any hesitations about this point, I would refer you to those resources. So with that, let's move on to point 3. We have to fight abortion incrementally. We can't just do it all in one move. What do we say to that? We have to move slowly.
Well, I think you got to look at what's that done for us so far. That's what we've been doing for 48 years in Oklahoma. In the past 4 years, there's been an increase in abortions. So look at that from a practical standpoint, but look at it scripturally. Is it scriptural? Absolutely not. So it's pro-life bills are unbiblical. They're a direct violation of Scripture. And then what does the Constitution say about it? Constitution, again, U.S. Constitution, 14th Amendment, Oklahoma Constitution, Article 2, Section 2, and Section 7, all guarantee a right to life. So this incremental idea is unconstitutional as well. It's a 100% failure rate, it's unscriptural, and it's unbiblical. So no, that is just, it's not a good argument.
I keep coming back to the consistency thing, but pretty much every single one of these arguments they're going to make is going to be an issue of consistency for them. They're not going to be able to consistently say, we have to do this incrementally about everything they believe is wrong. If the Supreme Court were to say tomorrow that it's legal to rape in any case, they would defy them. They would say we need to stop this now. There's no question about defunding or any number of different increments they might come up with. They would just do it immediately. So it's always going to be an issue of them about consistency because we live in a culture that's very ageist towards our preborn neighbors, and they don't view them as equal to us. They're not loving them as we love ourselves. They're not applying the golden rule to them, so get them to apply the golden rule to them and see them as a human.
And do add, especially if you're talking to your senator or your rep, give the reasons, but then say, I live in your district. I'm here to tell you I would like you to abolish abortion, not delay abolishing abortion with increments. You're not really there to have a debate about policy and you may not, but you are there to reason with them as much as you can, but you do need to make sure, like if they say they say something about incrementalism and you can't remember either of those answers, say, no, I'm here to tell you that I support abolition, would like you to support abolition too, and I vote, right? They don't want you saying that. They want to say, what about this? Hope you can't answer it. And then you go, okay, well, I guess I'll be okay with kicking the ball down the field a little bit. Thanks, Bob, or whatever.
All right, number 4, leadership won't support this bill. So a version of this that we've heard, I think it was 2 years ago here in Oklahoma, was I can't challenge the throne, right? The throne being Republican leadership here in Oklahoma. So what do we do if we're told that by a legislator?
Yeah, and we've heard that a lot. For some reason, there's this mentality up there that leadership runs the show, and they do right now because they're allowed to. But the reality is, the Senate pro tem of the Senate represents the exact same amount of people that senator from rural Oklahoma. They're all equal. They're all equal, and they all have the authority to author a bill. And I think that's the big deal because I hear that all the time. You need leadership to do this. Leadership's not going to support this. It's got to be their idea. No, as a state senator or a state representative, it doesn't matter what state you're in, you have the authority to author a bill. That is what, they cannot take that from you. Leadership has no recourse to not let an elected official author a bill. So it doesn't matter, be like, you know what, yeah, I'd love to have leadership support, but you're asking them to use their office that they were elected to author a bill, and leadership does not have the authority to tell them they cannot do that.
Yeah, just to borrow a little bit from Russell's last answer, they didn't you are not representing, your legislator is not representing, you're not being represented by the leadership generally, unless you actually are being represented by one of the leaders. You're being represented by that legislator you're talking to. So it's not a matter of whether or not the leadership is behind it. They are responsible to you as a voter and to all the people that you're going to influence to vote for somebody else to pass bills that you are telling them to pass. And it doesn't matter whether every single person was against that bill. That's what Joseph faced when he first proposed it. Everyone has responsibility to uphold justice, and it does not matter what the leadership says.
A principle of Politics 101 is to kind of pass the buck off to somebody else, right? So if I'm a legislator and I don't want to do something, I'll say, well, the leadership won't get behind this, or we don't have the votes in committee, or we can pass this but the governor wouldn't sign it, or the attorney general wouldn't enforce it. So it's someone else's fault. They wouldn't support it. Therefore, I don't have to do my part, right? That doesn't follow. So what if the governor says he's not going to sign it? So what if leadership says they won't support it? You are responsible to God. First and foremost, you're responsible to the Constitution after that. You're responsible to me as a voter, right? And so don't let them pass the buck off. Make sure they know what they're accountable to and the order of things that they are accountable to. Leadership is not on there. They are not near the top of that list. And don't let them just pass you to the staff and pass you over here, because that's what they'll try to do. Don't let them do that. So
this didn't go super great, but with one legislator 2 years ago who said the exact same thing. Well, leadership is just going to kill that. Little Socratic method. Oh, yeah, why would he kill that? He's not doing what he should do. He's a coward. Yeah, man, they don't do what they're going to do. They're cowards, and they just, it's like they have the ability to do it. It's like, so why won't you do what you have the ability to do? Are you a coward? So be careful, but some of this is in your mind. Some of this is in your mind that they're passing the buck, and they're saying, well, I can't do this. You have to remember that's what they're doing. And in whatever way you can tell them that that's what they're doing, even if you don't get anything else out of that, you're helping the cause. Because you're letting the legislature know that the games they've traditionally played to keep us from lobbying them rightly are no longer working.
all right, number 5, it's too late in the session or too close to the session in order for me to put forward an abolition bill. What do we do with that? And that may not be specifically for us to Abolition Day, but just a general thing that you might hear around the country.
Yeah, so it goes back to those excuses. That's a great one. Oh, we've missed this deadline. We've missed that deadline. It's true. There's deadlines. But reality is there's deadlines that are missed all the time, and they'll do a committee sub or something, and or take a bill that passed committee and it's going to the Senate floor. You can swap out the language. This happens all the time. Even after it comes out of Senate committee and passes the Senate floor and goes to the House and passes the House committee and passes the House floor, they can still swap out the language and send it back to the Senate after busting all of these deadlines. They just have to find the bill to do it. So there's always a way to find a bill to plug language into. Does it reduce the chances of success that bill has? Sure it does, but it also lets you know if your legislator is actually interested in ending abortion or not. Also, there's no deadline for filing a bill for next session. So if they're serious, okay, well, you missed all the deadlines. There's no bill under this title of law that we can switch out. How about we file the bill right now for next session? That's been done before. You can do that. And if he says no, well, why not? So there's deadlines, but there's ways around them, and there's also next year that they can start right now.
Yeah, they actually, there's so many of these little legal loopholes and stuff for them. They can do, like, if something happens in the culture after all the deadlines, and someone in leadership at the Senate or the House wants to be like, I want to file a bill to like rename the Capitol George Floyd Dome or whatever, they can do it. They can find a way. And it's just, it's generally if they have a will to do it. And you need to tell them that you know that. If they tell you a deadline or something like that, say, Well, I'm kind of getting educated on this, and I've learned that you can do floor subs, you can change language, you can swap out language, you can amend things. There are certain rules that can be invoked to bring bills that are dead or bills that haven't been heard to committee to the floor. There's numerous things that I know you guys can do if you just cared enough to establish justice for these children. And I think if they consistently, again, I'm going to say this over and over again, if they consistently hear this, a relatively educated group of the citizenry coming to them and saying, that was an excuse, you can do this. Because as Joseph just said, if they give you like an excuse and you say, well, okay, how about filing a bill for next session? If they don't do it, well, you know that first excuse was invalid.
All right, so last scheduled question before we get to audience questions here is we're going to get to the situation with Senate Bill 1372, and that is the bill that Warren Hamilton has put forward for this year, 2022. And we have a rule here in Oklahoma. We operate in 2-year periods, our legislature. And so if a bill is killed in year 1 of a 2-year period, the same bill cannot be reintroduced for year 2 of the 2-year period. So last year, they voted down the bill in committee. So the same bill cannot be reintroduced unless they vote to suspend Senate rules, which, as we talked about, if there's a will, there's a way. If they want the bill, they can suspend the rules to make it happen. But even without doing that, this is a new bill. And we talked about this, Sam, Rachel, and I, on our most recent Liberator podcast. We made 3 very substantial changes to the bill, none that take any important, crucial part of an abolition bill out, but that do amend the bill in significant ways, that it is not the same bill. And so what I think is a lot of people are going to hear on Tuesday up at the Capitol is that, well, we already killed that bill. It's not valid. It's not eligible to be assigned to committee this year. And Greg Treat, thus far, at least as of this morning, I haven't checked in the last few hours here, but he still has not assigned that bill to committee, while he has assigned not every other bill, but virtually every other bill put forward in the Senate has been assigned to committee. And so I think Greg Treat is preparing to say, this is the same bill, we're not even going to assign it committee or allow it to be even considered for a committee hearing. And so there's 3 talking points here. There are 3 significant changes that you guys need to know about. One, we added language dealing with the state Supreme Court. So in the past year, they said, well, okay, this bill deals with the Supreme Court and the federal judiciary, but what about the state courts if they want to strike this down? So we added language saying that basically violating the right to life is an impeachable offense if you're a judge in the state of Oklahoma. To violate the right to life is to show contempt for the U.S. Constitution. It's to show contempt for the Oklahoma Constitution. If you do it, you're subject to impeachment. So we added that. Point 2 is we changed the life of the mother language to not that it was necessarily bad previously, but we tweaked that. You can go back and listen to the Liberator podcast for the whole story on that, but we changed that. And then the third one, what's the third one? Which one am I forgetting? Repealers, yes. Thank you, Blake. Yes. So the big objection, they jumped from objection to objection based on the here. And last year, the big one was, well, this is getting rid of all of our hard-fought pro-life victories. And so what we did this year to take that away is they need to be made null. They need to be nullified so abolition can be enforced. But we basically said we're not going to repeal them from the books. They'll still be there, but they will be superseded. So they will stay there, but they will not be in effect. The abolition bill will be what's enforced, and these bills will not be enforced. So those are 3 big differences between this year's bill and last year's bill. If you can't remember all those, we're going to have an Abolition Day page with talking points. We're going to have everyone who attends the rally scan a QR code, and all these talking points will be in there, so you don't have to remember all of that right now, but it is not the same bill. They're going to try to tell you it's the same bill. I won't co-author it because it's the same bill. It's not the same bill. And so we will provide more on that on Tuesday. Anyone else got anything?
Yeah, on that note, I've seen, so leadership doesn't always pass their bills like they want. A lot of times they just get too much pushback. So what they'll do is next year, they'll just author the same bill, and I've literally seen it where they just change like 2 words. That's it. We had at one time, there was a chairman of the Health and Human Services Committee that was pushing mandated vaccines, right? And we killed it, and so that was final action, just like Senate Bill 495. It's dead, right? And I was like, great, don't have to deal with that next year. Next year, I see the bill come up, and I'm like, this is the exact same bill. So I went and talked, but it was a chairman bill, right? So I went and talked to staff. They were like, well, actually, this word and this word are different. 2 words. Same bill, 2 words. And they put it forward. We killed it again. So if they, I mean, the short answer, yeah, you get those talking points from James, but the short, first off, they haven't read the bill. They didn't read 495. They haven't read this year's bill either, okay? Just know that. And so the short answer is, first, did you read both bills side by side? They're going to say, well, no, I haven't had time. Well, let me just save you the time. It's not the same bill whatsoever. We need you to co-author it.
And you can just say there are 3 substantial differences. And by the way, you know that this bill, if it's different, can be heard.
All right. With that, let's open it up to the floor. So if anyone has any questions, come up, microphone here, and we will take them as we go. Let's go until 8:20.
Yes, question. Have you found that it is more effective to use moral arguments or logical arguments with legislators? It seems like on the left, the standard is to go straight to moral arguments. This is wrong, therefore you must do something about it. But what have you found to be more effective, head or the heart?
I think both. You really need to use both because we always need to go back to what Scripture says and remind them about that, which would be on the moral side of things. But they're very quick to say, well, I keep religion and politics separate. Okay, once you start that argument, they're going to lose, but it's going to go a long time. So then if you just switch over to constitutionality or just those logical things like consistency, they have a really hard time arguing against those logical arguments. A very hard time. And if the legislator's not even a devout Christian, he doesn't care what Scripture says, but he's still going to have a hard time arguing against that other stuff. So, but I always say use both. Don't ever just go the practical, logical. Always bring in Scripture, but don't ignore and abandon logical arguments.
Yeah, I would just say a lot of the same thing. I think that you could make only moral scriptural arguments, and you could make moral scriptural arguments and practical arguments, but you should never make only practical arguments. Usually when we're talking about practical arguments, it's usually just taking away objections that they're going to have on a practical side, but it should never remain merely an intellectual exercise. They need to know that human beings are going to die this year because of their inaction on this, and they are the people most responsible for it. When they ran for office, they were taking on a very heavy burden being legislators during a Holocaust. And they may not have thought of that when they began running, but that is the reality of what they have done, and they need to consider that in light of their office and in light of what's happening.
And let me say something very good that I think is very true, and you just need to know. The Holy Spirit is real. He is a living, active person who is working on the other side, okay? I have to believe, and I think it's more reasonable to believe, that there are men and women up there, they all claim to be Christians, most of them, at least the Republicans, right? Some of them really are, okay? I think if you say, I'm going to remove moral or spiritual or scriptural stuff and just, I think you are missing on the opportunity to prick the conscience, go straight into their heart, and find that God's already working on them, and that they are. I mean, I've seen people in offices like with Smalley, who we got out of there, but Smalley, who was killing his bill in 2019. People saying, "Why don't you be Wilberforce?" and him just banging the table and sweating through his, and just really, really angry with these people, and it's like little church ladies that are like, why can't you just be like William Wilberforce? And just really flipping out. Well, I think there's something going on in him. Then I've seen, just a few years prior, walking into his office and saying, which you didn't tell the story, like say, hey, you've got this heartbeat bill language. Do you believe abortion's murder? Why don't you switch it from a heartbeat to conception, and instead of just prohibition to murder, criminalization, whatever. And him being like, yeah, like, oh, of course, I'm a Christian, that's biblical. So it resonated with him, okay? So some of these folks up there are just like most of us, and they just haven't heard it. So you're the person who's bringing it to them, and you're saying, yeah, do you believe that governing authorities ought to make laws against murder? They're going to be like, yeah. Do you believe that abortion's murder? Yeah. Do you think you should make a law prohibiting abortion as murder? Well, I mean, I support all these other pro-life. Like, no. There is one bill that says abortion is murder. It should be abolished. Why aren't you supporting that? And just stay there with them. And I think that we can be faithful, we can be kind, we can stay there with them, and find that you're not the only one trying to persuade them to do justice. And that maybe he will be helping on the other end.
So earlier in the panel, it was mentioned that even though there has been pro-life legislation passed in the previous years, the amount of abortions has increased. Was that based around just a numeral value of abortions increased, not a percentage of abortions?
Actual numbers. So we look at really 2016 to 2019 as giving us a really good sample, because that's from about the point where we had bills of abolition being put forward and killed. And in response to, instead, it'd often be like, I'm not going to support Senate Bill 1118 or 13 or whatever it would be. I'm not going to support those bills, but I am going to do this pro-life bill, which will save some lives. So it's always, so from 2016 to now, there has always been an abolition bill and an increasing number of pro-life bills. And the pro-life bills get passed to give cover for the fact that they're killing the abolition bill, but the apologetic for them is these will save some lives. The sheer empirical data, however, is they haven't. It's strange. They pass a law saying you're not allowed to do this abortions, and they put out a press release, this will save thousands of lives, and it goes from like 4,917 to 5,036. And that's just what we've seen. And that is, just so you know, we're using numbers that are compiled from the CDC, and those are just the abortions that are recorded. Right. So really there are more abortions than that, but they have gone up. I will say, just in case someone brings this up, 2020, everything went down. I don't know if you guys know that, but 2020 was a weird year. Everything went down. Sex outside of marriage went down. And getting pregnant went down. And so there was a period in which STIT had a sort of a, no one could be open, including abortion things. And so there was a period where they might say, well, this is some kind of an incremental thing that STIT did, and it saves lives, and there's less abortions in 2020 than in 2019. If that is indeed the case, it wasn't because of any pro-life legislation. It was because people weren't conceiving babies.
Yeah, and beyond that, even if it was true that pro-life bills saved many, many, many children, that less babies died each year because of a pro-life bill, those bills were still substitutes for abolition that would have saved all of the babies. So really what you did was you allowed 5,000 babies to be murdered. You didn't save more babies than you would have otherwise if you just passed the abolition bill. You sacrificed children because of your strategy, because you were saying that you needed to do it incrementally, because you're saying you had to obey the Supreme Court. So it's not a matter of pro-life bills save lives and abolition bills don't. It's a matter of we're killing the abolition bills in favor of pro-life bills that do not establish justice and sacrifice all the children.
For those of you who are here in the building, we have a new pamphlet that we produced. I believe we have them at the registration table. That it shows it from 2016 to 17 to 18 to 19 based on Oklahoma State Department of Health reports. So you can see exactly as it goes up. So if you're here in the building, you can go grab one of those.
Yeah. And the other part that's those numbers as well, the other part of it that's interesting is that in conservative states, that seems to be in many conservative states, that seems to be the case where abortion numbers will go up with incremental bills, but in liberal states where they don't have those incremental bills, abortion rates go down consistently. So if it was the case that pro-life bills were saving lives, why is it the case that more liberal states that don't have any of these incremental bills see abortion decreases year after year when conservative states don't?
And as a little advertisement for Callie's talk, I believe Callie's talk tomorrow, there is a increasing number of unrecorded abortions.
Right.
So it's going to be a little hard for us to make these arguments in the future because you can order abortions online. And they're not going to be recording those. Someone will probably pass a pro-life bill to record those, and that'll save lives.
All right, we'll go with Valley, and then we'll go to Tammy.
So there's a lot of us from out of state. What's a good way we can serve in the next few days? And if it's talking with legislators, what can we say? Because we're going to face a little bit of a unique objection probably, not being constituents.
So I used to go to D.C. every year, and then multiple times besides that with the previous pro-life group that I was with, and I wasn't from many of the states that we were talking to, representatives and senators, but it still was useful to just be in the room when those conversations was happening, even if they didn't come and ask me whether I was one of their constituents. It's a full room of people, and they pay more attention then. And it's also good to be able to see other people conversing with legislators and getting better at it just by virtue of seeing other people do it who are maybe better or more skilled at it than you are. So just going and being in the room as just another body in the room and learning from what you're hearing as well.
Yeah, and I'd say another thing that lobbyists do is they go from state to state kind of pitching an idea, right? So don't approach them like you're a constituent, because you're not. And as soon as you say, hey, I'm from wherever, you may lose them. But if you start the conversation with, hey, in the state of Kansas or whatever it may be, there's an active group that are pushing this, and now there's 7 states, and so we're here on behalf of of our state trying to get Oklahoma to come on board. Because for some reason, like I've heard so many times, other state legislators told me, hey, we're going to do it when Oklahoma does it. And then from senators in Oklahoma, they're like, as soon as Texas does it, we're on board. And even congressional, like congressmen, U.S. congressmen have said that. They've said, yeah, I'll come back and speak for it as soon as some other states do it. So I don't care what other states do. But you shouldn't really, as a state. You need to do what's right. But a lot of state senators and legislators do care. And so if you don't come across like, hey, I'm here and I'm a rebel rouser, right? But no, come across like, hey, in our state, we're doing this, and we're kind of going, other states are doing it, we're working with our state, and kind of pitch it as like a collaborative effort. They may kind of cue in, especially if you're like, by the way, Oklahoma's one of 7 states that are filing this, so our group is watching. That you may get a little bit better feedback there.
I would say when you're thinking about what to prioritize your time on, your time with legislators isn't going to be as important as an Oklahoman's time with that legislator, but it still can be worth something if you have a good educational conversation with them. Another thing you can do is hold signs. Obviously, Oklahomans, we want going to their legislators, having meetings. But if you're not from out of state, you could hold signs, lead chants. Valley, I know you got a big voice. You could boom that voice inside the Capitol, lead some chants, abolish abortion, all that stuff. So yeah, that's what I would say about that.
We'll have a few more like practical tips on that stuff, but just I'm going to say it now. Do not lie, okay? Do not. I probably don't need to say that in this room, but don't lie, okay? And if you are there and there is an Oklahoman, say you are the more natural talker, but you're standing with it, let the Oklahoman speak and you back him up. Now, if there isn't an Oklahoma, just like they've said, I mean, it's still worthwhile. Engage them in the arguments, tell them you're an abolitionist, it's growing. They need to know it's growing everywhere, and it's still an excuse. I mean, you're still a person calling them to do the right thing. Like, I'm not in Oklahoma, but I'm a Christian. Are you a Christian? Pivot, go that way.
All right, we are at 8:21, so we're going to go through these real quickly. Tammy, go ahead, and we'll just have one person answer each question, and we'll answer these 4, and then we will dismiss you all. Or no, we got one more thing, and then we'll dismiss you all.
I think I'm the only abolitionist in my district, but do other state senators try to placate by saying that abortion is already illegal in Oklahoma.
Yeah, they do all the time. So what they're referring to is there is a statute on the books that say abortion is basically a homicide, right? That statute is not being enforced. There's a footnote that basically they acknowledged, oh, Roe v. Wade said this, therefore we're not going to enforce this statute anymore, right? But that is an increasing excuse. It's already illegal in our statutes. It's sort of true because the language is there, but the footnote says it's not enforceable. And to make matters worse, we've put all this pro-life legislation on the books that now say it's definitely not a homicide. So if they say that, just say that's not true. If you're referring to the statute that's already on the books, it's not enforceable, and all the pro-life legislation has set up when, where, and how you can kill your baby. So we have to clear that up with an abolition bill.
Say, well, if that's true, why are they killing them
Yeah,
a
I've
mile
already
away?
invited him to the Tulsa Women's Clinic.
Oh, wow, nice. So how do you answer a person, legislator, or even city council person who says something like this? I represent the people, and the majority of the people do not want this.
That's a great excuse, and they're totally lying because most of the time legislative things happens. It comes from about 1.5% to 2% of the population. So again, if you have a state senate district, 1.5% of the people of their voters show up. They're going to do exactly what they're told. And more, and you can also, don't even get into that argument, just say, what does the Constitution say? Because you swore an oath to uphold the Constitution. Here's what the Constitution says about life. Currently, you are not upholding your oath.
Do most parents don't care for their baby, or they just can't take care of their baby?
Someone else.
If you're talking about at-abortion facilities, then I don't know. I wouldn't say that they don't necessarily care for them, but because of the sinfulness of humanity and the many different reasons people come up with for why they might commit a atrocious act, they do it because of love of other things, love of worldly things as opposed to the love of their child, and they will sacrifice them for that sake.
I think we lost the mic. Oh.
Why isn't abortion illegal?
Because the people have not demanded it yet.
That's right.
Kids are going to break our hearts.
This is a sin issue. Kids see this pretty well. Why are mommies and daddies killing their babies? And why are the people that are supposed to be doing justice not stopping it? You're seeing it right. All of these adults are wrong. They're sinful. They're not following God, and they're not doing the good, loving thing. And we need to see it the way that you guys are seeing it.
Thank you.